Management system for mages is no different. So the boy's theory fits them just fine. The character thought similar thoughts occurred to him while researching the materials, so it's true. And the interlocutor offered to say that this book is now her Bible. She crossed the continent to serve the author of this book. The boy was amazed, thinking, this is it. It's just the basics, and it's not clear why she's so turned on. Also, Dialecki noticed that the rice here was delicious too. But the prince, he didn't want her to bring it here. Either way, he's glad the reason for her loyalty is so simple. Hope I didn't make the wrong choice, and all will be well. After a while, he sat at his books and realized that this structure of all magic, he understood the theory westernized, and now it is necessary to translate it into reality. He began to remember how Dia used her magic. After repeating roughly the same thing, something started to work, and soon he felt the flow of energy right in his body. It was then that a bright light spread from his room. He was glad that now magic had been added to his long list of sciences learned in his past lives. Teaching magic is just a hobby. As Lord of Fahilia, it was time for Errol to attend to more important matters. That's why he's come to Aranesius Square. And there he was amazed to see what he had come for. It was that famous gnome blacksmith. Asa was also excited to see this place, for she had finally found their lair. But the boy didn't understand why this tone of drawl was not tucked away like they had come. Lastly, the girl asked if they really couldn't be rude, or else the whole plan would fail. Errol pointed out that she should not do that under any circumstances. Let her remember that she was on the job and not to cause any trouble. She wanted to say something else, but the boy declared that nothing needed to be said. Suddenly, he felt very hot inside, just coming in and already mated. The first thing that greeted them was Ben. He said that he was Aiken's apprentice, and that he was 15 years old. He also said that he was going to show them everything, so he asked them to follow him. Errol felt sorry for the 15-year-old lad who was on the dwarves' errand. The boy said he wanted to come to the prince with the master, but the master said he should stay here. Looking at the guests, he didn't understand why they were looking at him so sadly, and they were telling him to hold on. As they entered the next room, they were greeted by Aiken. He informed them that the letter had arrived long ago, and he was a little late. Errol said he's all grouchy like that. What makes him think he's got a letter? He's got to hit the road right away. The old man indicated that he was interested, and was more interested in what was needed this time. The hero wondered if he was serious about pouring him wine instead of tea. Setting the glass aside, he said, "This is a little different from previous requests. The thing is, he wants half of the dwarves to make a contract with him." Aiken shouted that that was out of the question. He must have gotten intoxicated from one sip of wine. The hero informs that he is completely sober and asks to listen to the end. He wants them to open a workshop in Fahilia, and of course he will pay all the expenses. The dwarf shouted again that it was not interesting. Who gave a damn about this far away and cold hole anyway? They don't need money that badly, do they? The prince himself understood perfectly well that they were not interested in money at all. So he informed them that it was not only about money. They had a resource that they would be very interested in. And we're talking Damascus steel. Aiken was actually interested, asking if he was serious. The alchemy tutor had remarked to Errol that the dwarves were very partial to rare metals, which were scarce on Earth. He asked if he knew why they'd settled in the capital in the first place. The prince then asked if it was because of their large mines. The interlocutor said that he was absolutely right, and it was funny. They don't want orders or human technology. It's just the hope that someday they'll be able to get a rare metal. Knowing all this now, Errol said he had already started mining steel. If the dwarves worked under him, they would be the first to know about new technologies based on it. Aiken, more interested, asked if it was definitely true. The boy heard his voice quivering, after which she said that he had the work and materials, and they had the power and skills. If they joined forces, it could create a bunch of stuff out of Damascus steel. The old man then indicated that he might agree, but what were the terms? The hero said that he wanted to offer a contract for 10 years, but the old man didn't like it, and they started a discussion. In the end, Aiken only offered 5 years. The boy noted that big and would not ask for it. After shaking his hand, he informed that he agreed to this. Aiken continued to be town and informed that he would tell the other dwarves that, so let him wait a month. The hero realized that they were so interested in this Damascus steel and these dwarves in his exact pocket. So he informed Asa that it was time for them to go back. Then he decided it was time to take a break. He was exhausted from all this traveling. He was barely out of the past, but he didn't want to give up the best part of it. After a while, Kanya looked out of the window interestedly. She asked the girls nearby if anyone had seen Errol leave his room. Asha replied that she hadn't seen him since they had returned from the capital. And Sena asked worriedly if he was ill, and didn't tell him so as not to burden him. The princess said it was probably true, but it was unclear why he was taking so long to leave the room. After a couple minutes, she decided he needed to be checked out, so she quickly ran to his room, and even knocked on the door, but she opened it immediately, asking Errol if he was all right, and if he was sick by any chance. But there saw a very interesting picture of his personal sorceress feeding him, and him lying there doing nothing. Arel greeted his sister and asked if she had come to breakfast with him. If she had come, let her join him. Dia noted that she would now do as the Lord wished, so lifted it up with magic, and the clothes headed along with him too. Thus, without doing anything, was already dressed. Kanya was also subjected to strong magic. Consequently, she was sitting at the table with her brother. At that time, Arel also reported that the magic was just fine, and thanked Dia for a great job. Seeing his sister's discouraged face, he asked why she wasn't eating. After all, it would get cold. The girl asked him if he thought there was something wrong, but he didn't see a problem and said that everything was fine. Kanya realized that he was acting like a child, and it was unclear what had gotten into him. Her brother was saying that he had eaten a very good meal, and was even a little tired, so perhaps he should go for a swim. So the enchantress said she wanted to take a bath, and she decided to fulfill that. But the sister clearly didn't like it and declared that it was too much. Along with the prince's personal nights, he asked Dia and Arella to explain themselves to us. The character realized it looked weird, so he said it was his fault. The girls were discussing the fact that he must have some sense of proportion, and the guy couldn't understand what he had done wrong. So he turned to the sorceress and asked what she thought about it. Isn't it rude of a sister to barge in for no reason? Kanya didn't like this again at all, and she immediately slapped the table. Then she asked him if he thought he was relying too much on magic. He looked at her again and asked what was wrong with the magic. Or was it because of Dia? She does her job very well and is on time for all her duties. The sister said that there were no problems on her side. The problem lies elsewhere. So I asked Obrat when was the last time he moved on his own. He smiled and said that he climbed into the bathroom by himself. The interviewer was amazed by this. Also, Sena said she had heard about him using magic in everything lately. Like Asha, who said it was going too far. The prince stated whether it was more inconvenient to live like that, and asked if Dia was okay with it. She nodded, whereupon the boy said she was fine with it. Then it's not clear what the problem is. The girls at this shouted with one voice that this would not do. Asha said, Dia must have some kind of problem, since she obeys Arel unconditionally. Right now she might deny it, but what would others think when they saw the prince like that? The guy was already cheering when he imagined it, and stated that he told you he'd be fine. Isn't that so all right though? The girls shouted indignantly to him again, at which point he claimed he was joking. Kanya remarked that in any case she, as the older sister, forbids him to do so. He is strictly forbidden to use magic in the household. The boy was astonished. But that wasn't all, for she said that Dia was strictly forbidden to follow Errol's stupid orders. The hero didn't understand why the sorceress was more shocked than he was. She in turn asked if she was going to be fired. And that's when he realized what was going on. The princess tried to reassure her, saying there was no question of dismissal. And Errol wondered if his way of life had changed that much. Though it was true that he had begun to depend on magic because it was convenient. Thinking back on what had happened first, he realized that it had started with little things. Dia had just handed him a book, but he got lazy after that and even asked the sorceress to move him to the bed. With horror, he couldn't understand when he had only had time to become like this. Magic was a scary thing, and now he could see why his sister was angry with him. She was just wondering if he continued to live like that, what would happen to his body. Dia noted that there would be no problem with that, because every time she uses her magic, she also stimulates the Lord's muscles, so they definitely won't weaken. While the boy was wondering about that, his sister shouted out that that wasn't the case. Dia has to have a life too, and she can't be around her brother 24/7. Maybe we should switch mages. Suddenly the girl shouted that she didn't mind at all. It's her job, and she's no worse than any other mage, so they don't have to doubt her at all. Hearing this, Arel wondered if his sister had hurt the mage's pride. Asha joined the conversation and noticed that it's true that your Kanya is a bit over the top. But the idea of abandoning household magic is justified. She also wondered why she wanted to be around Errol. The protagonist thought that was right. After all, it wouldn't make any difference to her if she was transferred to another department. She could go elsewhere if she got tired of following his orders. So he stated to the girls, I think I've forgotten, but the decision is still hers. The sister suggested differently. If he didn't convince her of the necessity of such an approach, then she would admit that leaving the sorceress under Arella made sense. The interlocutor noted that the missus can test her as she pleases. The prince couldn't understand what she was trying to accomplish, so he asked how she was going to test her. Soon the girl brought in a lot of paper and said that Arel was a genius. Then, don't you have to be as smart to be under a ruler? It was the first test, and it was written. Dia started writing it, and was aided by magic, which she managed very easily. Kanya realized that the doctors had entrusted her with all the paperwork, so there was no tampering. But amazingly, magic does everything for her. And the boy at the time thought the test was just useless. The second test was cooking. The gentleman has a special appetite, so he had to match it. The sorceress said there would be no problem with that. When she was in the Mango Tower, she often did household chores. So she immediately started cooking, and in this she was helped by magic, as usual. It didn't take her long. And when the girl was done, she said she was sure it would all be to the gentleman's liking. Kanya, along with her brother, tried this food and felt that it was just incredible. The boy only wondered if she had decided to cook all of his favorite dishes at all. He wondered how that was possible. While the princess was about to set up a third test, the hero asked his protectors to be honest with him. He wondered what they thought of all this. The girls said, "No matter how you spin it, Dia is a really talented mage. But Mrs. Kanya still won't give up." The boy asked, "But what was it that she didn't like so much?" He was answered that Mrs. Kanya was merely suspicious of Dia. He should probably remember the incident that was reported to him 2 days ago. The security system of the magic items was partially damaged, but the culprit was never caught. Arel asked, "So do they really think it's Dia's fault?" Sena informed that it wasn't. She didn't think she was the one to blame. It's just that there is something that needs to be thoroughly investigated. Asya noticed there was something she didn't want to talk about. After saying that, Hana immediately took out a tattered envelope, talking about the perp leaving it behind or maybe dropping it. The boy didn't understand what it was, because it said to return Dia to the mage tower. He wondered if someone had decided to take away their mage, and also if they had shown this message to Dia. The girl said they had, but she didn't say anything. That said, there was no hint of worry on her part. Asha believes her, but this behavior seemed a bit unnatural to her. Besides, it's not clear why Dia is so attached to him. The hero himself knew it was weird for no particular reason. She favored him so much in this problem. Suddenly he asked if perhaps it was because he was attractive. The girls didn't understand if he meant it. Sena even noted that normally she would have slapped him. The Lord twisted away, and then pondered that because he had seen Dia's aura and hadn't noticed any oddities. He couldn't tell the knights and Kanya about it, though. In fact, his older sister had suffered in the past due to an attack by a black mage. But he would have noticed similar intentions from Dia. So has now communicated that he understands everything, and is just asking to calm down. The girls wanted to say something else, but he informed them that he would sort it out himself. So he asked his sister to calm down too. Kanya accepted his positions and did not deny it. Next, the boy thought it was time to know the whole truth. So he told Dia that they needed to talk. They were in her room, and the guy remarked that he was sorry for what had happened. The sorceress declared that it was all right. The boy looked around a bit and realized that the room looked neglected. There was very little furniture, and it was probably because she was always near him. Dia informed her that the mistress had every right to test the mage's abilities. After all, she was serving her half-brother. The prince then asked her to slow down. Sister Kanya just doesn't like magic initially. She was against the very idea of hiring a mage. The interlocutor remarked that she had known about it from the very beginning. The hero wondered if she had told her. Dia replied that it wasn't all because of the assault incident. After one incident, the nobles stopped trusting the mages and their income plummeted. Since then, the mage's tower began to teach them how to kill blacksmiths. The boy was very surprised and told her not to listen to his sister anyway, for she had said it hotly. But the girl said it was all right. Her abilities as a magician have been questioned. If so, she must prove the purity of her intentions. Hero liked that kind of steadfastness and steadfastness. At that, he asked why she was so eager to be his personal mage. He doesn't see it. They haven't even met. He can't understand why she would even think he is a kind person. So far, he has only taken advantage of the fact that she puts him first. So I wonder if he can explain the real reason. When the girl stated that she would tell everything, but it would be a long story. It turns out that she was taken to the magic tower at an early age. The village was hit by an epidemic and lost her entire family. She survived only thanks to the wizards. Arel, got it. So they took Dia after all because they saw her mana. The Tower of Mages does sometimes save orphans if it sees magical potential in them. The interlocutor went on to say that it was then that she began to study magic, but she was having a hard time with it. She couldn't live up to the tower's expectations, so she was treated like a loser, doing all the dirty work. The boy reported that he could not, you only understand. She is, after all, a superb magician. Dia said that wasn't always the case. She even stayed back for a second year twice. The master again did not believe it, and she reported that she had been very weak then. She did not understand the theory taught by the tower mages at all, so she had not been able to control the spells. It was at that moment that she came across this book that created he, namely The Path to the Heights of Raptorhood. Once again, Arel couldn't believe it, so asked if she had trained on it. Dia said she did. She had trained to control mana according to the rules of this book, and she even managed to advance to 4th grade in just 2 years of training. The hero wondered if just by reading the book she understood everything that was written there. Perhaps she is a genius, able to advance so much in just 2 years. Her words didn't sound like a ridiculous excuse at all. If he hadn't published the book, she'd have spent her whole life tending to the mage tower. She had no idea she had such a talent. She now declared, on the basis of all that had been said, the very existence of Mr. Errol was a salvation to her. The boy pointed out that it wasn't really true. It was the fruits of her hard work. Still, without his help, she was lost. But the Lord asked not to exaggerate. The girl continued talking anyway. Once she became a 4th grade mage, she left the tower. Her teacher was very angry with her because of this, but he hadn't taught her anything, so she didn't feel responsible to him. In addition, as soon as she became a 4th grade mage, he immediately thought of her. He realized that she hated the magic tower with all her heart. The enchantress added, leaving the walls of the tower, she decided to find out all about Arella. So I spent the rest of the time looking for it. She was so searching that she even crossed another continent by mistake. The boy remarked that it was normal for a battery wizard to spend his whole life in a tower. She reported that the moment she heard he was looking for a mage in Fahilia, she immediately applied. And here we are now with him. With that teacher to whom she is truly devoted and grateful. To Errol, the words seemed sincere. He said he should tell his sister. She should understand. But Dia said she didn't want to. To get her recognition, she must show her own skills. And she's too embarrassed to tell anyone about her past mediocrity. Seeing her shyness, the guy said he understood. Further stated that she could rest for now and let her stay here. Night had fallen, and Errol was doing something under his blanket. He was talking to his magic teacher, and told her about a girl who made it to 4th grade in 2 years. The man realized he was talking about Dia. She was truly an outstanding student in the tower. But unfortunately, she was just unlucky with her teacher, so she had to develop her skills on her own. She also left the tower, thus breaking the contract. The boy inquired about the contract. The interlocutor noted that she was sort of even punished for breaking her oath of service to the tower. If you break the rules, the contract is forcibly broken, and part of your power is taken away by the tower, and the person who broke it immediately becomes a lower-level mage. The prince found out that the tower might not have been simple at all, and thanked his interlocutor for the information. Eventually he realized that he would need to find out more about them. His mage had broken the rules just to see him. There's nothing he can do and he should probably help her. So contacted one other person and stated that he had a request. After a while, Kanya and Dia stood across from each other. The tension between them was growing more and more intense. Errol came here because he was worried. He couldn't figure out if his sister was really going to go all the way. The princess said that she had thought about it for a long time and decided that it would be the surest test for the sorceress's abilities. Let her prove her power by giving it to her. The hero realized that the swordmaster was challenging a 4th-class mage to a duel. It's like bear versus gopher. He tried to intervene, but no one listened to him. Dia said that she agreed, which meant that if she won, she should be recognized. Kanya stated that is true. They will see what she is good for. It also tests whether she's willing to sacrifice everything for Errol. Without a second's hesitation, the sorceress replied that she was certainly ready. Errol was horrified, realizing this was reckless, and asked the knights what they were so easily worth. But it was obvious they didn't really want to get into it. Then the boy didn't understand what he should do now. The sorceress at that stated she was starting. She embodied the power of her mana, accumulating it in her body. And so did Kanya with her power. Next, the sorceress began to recite some sort of spell. The prince realized it was attack magic, so did she really decide to attack? Suddenly, Dia used a dispel spell and revealed some person in the bushes, and when that happened in his direction, Kanya immediately rushed over, not giving the stranger a second to think. In the end, he only noticed a magical object near him, but he didn't have time to escape, and there was a huge explosion. Errol was horrified, for he thought they were now pouring over each other, and the girls finally found the culprit. Looked at this man, Diaz said that they haven't seen each other for a long time, because she recognized him. That was exactly what her self-proclaimed teacher was. The protagonist in turn knew that he had been hanging around his castle for quite some time. He wanted to just ignore him, but it turns out he's weird. The girl's teacher shouted out that it was indeed him. But it's unclear why they're attacking him since he's clean, and this is his ID card. Turning to Dia, he informed her that he had come here to take her back to the Mage Tower as her teacher. Isn't that what she wants? The girl noted that she didn't remember him teaching her. She was just an errand boy for him. And frankly, she never thought of him as her teacher. It was also quite unpleasant to have him here. The man was persistent, shouting that enough talking already, and they were going back. I wonder if she's aware, even if she is or not, that she's lost 4 whole years of schooling. Suddenly, Errol entered the conversation, wondering why Dia would want to return to this tower of his. Apparently he's not good enough to teach her, so unclear what he wants from her. The teacher shouted that it wasn't like that. Immediately enough, he grabbed her arm rather roughly, talking about how, even if he is, he's still her teacher. Dia should be punished for violating the tower's bylaws. So don't let them dare stop him. The hero tore their hands apart and, apologizing, said it was impossible. He must realize that Dia had contracted him as his personal magician, and he was sending an official request to the magic tower. The man shouted that all was not true to the tower's semi-statute. She could not leave so easily. The boy noted, for that matter, that his request had not been denied. Apparently the tower's mages were fine with Dia becoming his personal contracted mage. Therefore, he will view any obstacle as a threat to his safety. The wizard asked him not to rush him because he wouldn't allow it. He just couldn't. From his pocket, he took out some magical items, and immediately scattered them near him, talking about not being able to do anything about it. He would take the girl by any means necessary. So, summoning the creatures, sent them forward. The man kept saying, like a madman, that the girl should go with him. Without her, he would not have a successful future, so there was no other choice. Arel noticed that the rascal seemed to misunderstand something that made the situation so aggravating. His personal knights had already rushed to attack and said that they would not lose by any means. The boy thought that this teacher was at least a 7th grade magician, but he's only a 5th grader, which is really stupid. This whole scene looks like a schoolyard brawl. Seeing that he was losing, the man shouted that he didn't mean to go that far, but we'd have to take a hostage to keep them away, and he wanted the prince himself as a hostage. He, of course, wasn't fated to strip, for his student had used the lightning strike skill, and the creature her teacher had summoned was destroyed in an instant. The boy liked that very much, and Dia jumped up, continuing her attack. Next, she used a skill called Crushing Whirlwind. The whirlwind brought itself all over the stone creatures and headed straight for the teacher. It was then that Errol approached him and asked if he had changed his mind about fighting them. The man, in turn, was not going to give up and did something else. In the end, it turned out that he had used a teleportation scroll to escape. Aja shouted that he had run away and it was necessary to track him down. But the Lord told her to just leave him. Dia apologized to everyone for what had happened, since this whole mess was about her. Errol said it's all right, it's more his fault, and he hopes that all charges have now been dropped. By the way, he noticed that this mage was greatly surprised when faced with the power she used to protect him. The sorceress was surprised at his words. Soon he was rejoicing because the problem was solved. And everyone began to support Dia. But next he was going to do something else. After a while, it was night outside and snowing heavily. Dia's former teacher was making his way through the forest. He was talking about who would believe that she would become so strong he would surely take her away, and otherwise it would be bad. Suddenly someone approached him from a tree nearby, asking what would happen otherwise. Frightened, the man asked who he was and used his magic. It turned out to be the main character, who reported that he knew him perfectly well. Next, he used his own magic and the fire arrow skill. Then there was an explosion and the forest lit up. Soon the boy was reasoning what kind of Mac was it, since he was unable to stop such a simple attack. He really expected more from a magic tower teacher. It was good though, because the problem was solved. All this for the sake of his Dia, who had suffered because of that strange rascal. Now it's time to go home, because you need a good rest. Time passed, and he was sitting in the library, writing something down in a document. Suddenly, a magic-driven book headed in his direction. He smiled and realized it was Dia. He went on to say that she might not help him with that. The enchantress pointed out that it was part of her duties after all, so it was fine. After the suspicions subsided, Sister still insisted on restricting household magic. The principal was sad about it, because a life built on magic was so comfortable. Suddenly Dia asked if perhaps she was disturbing the Lord by being around him all the time. The boy replied that it was all right, and that what had happened was not her fault at all. She interlocutor stated that he was indeed merciful, now she respected him even more. Errol asked himself not to praise himself so much. What will happen to him when she recognizes the true him? The enchantress said he had to believe that nothing could confuse her anymore, because he is her benefactor, a man she respects. Errol realized he had a mage who respected him as well, and yet his life is very varied and interesting here. After a while, he was outside feeling the beautiful weather. It was the perfect day to do the very thing he wanted to do. He was going to practice magic now. That's why he used the chain lightning skill, and right behind him used a snowstorm. And of course there's no last fireball. Finished practicing with those spells, he thought he had practiced pretty well. Not a bad result for a 6th practice session, the boy decided. So was he really? Her mages would be shocked if they found out. Right now, he was at the border of his domain, so it was the perfect place to practice. And if there were more monsters here, there were better practices and couldn't be wished for. Which means he's going to look for the perfect one for him now, and an opponent. The queen of this country and his Aunt Elia is a scoundrel. Errol still remembers their first meeting. Even back then, she looked at him like he was a little bug. He'd like to turn a blind eye, but she won't let up on him. And she's trying to discredit his mom. The boy had already endured enough, but there was a limit to everything, so she needed to get ready already. Presently, he approached the place where the barrier against intruders had been placed. As expected, a certain frequency of mana waves is needed. But for a professional like him, it would be a simple matter. That's why he easily jumped through that very barrier. And the knights who were guarding the place didn't even suspect a thing. At the end of the day, Errol found himself in Elia's palace and realized that it was even bigger than theirs. There was no money to be made here, of course. Inside, he immediately decided to resort to magic. So he created just a huge ball of magic, and decided it was necessary to wreak some havoc for a change. When he did, it was like a meteor shower started in the neighborhood. And because of that, panic set in. The hero in turn was very excited about such mind-blowing and colorful fireworks. A subordinate shouted to Duke Dezel Prats that it was urgent to find shelter, and suddenly flames came down from the sky. and the old man couldn't understand what was happening. Soon people saw that there was still lightning in the yard as well, but it was unclear where it all came from. But the reason was obviously simple, and she was laughing madly now, talking about how this fiery party was making him happy. Arel wanted them to move their legs or they would be hams in their place. He kept setting the place on fire. Suddenly, he saw people who were in a panic. He realized that they were vassals of this family, and that's why they lived here. Next, I decided to give this man a curse. Nothing that can't be fixed will be like a bad flu. With the boy gone, it will simply go away, but for now, let him suffer. When it was hard enough to get in, so the boy wasn't going to leave empty-handed. And when he arrived at the locked door, he immediately destroyed the lock. He was very much interested in what, if anything, they had stored here. It turned out to be a treasure trove filled with gold coins and jewelry. Errol was naturally pleased by this. Eventually, he wondered if perhaps he should just beam it to himself. And lastly, I decided to leave a note in return. Soon, Duke Dazelle was informed that something had been left to him. This note was at the scene of the crime. The gentleman was swearing, and he wondered who this vile scoundrel was. However, when he and his butler read the contents, he was stunned not realizing what it was. Inside was a poem saying he was cold, so he melted the stove in his heart, and a signature that said it was a professional from a past life. Naturally, the first to be notified was Queen Elia. The woman couldn't believe it and fell to the ground in horror. She only asked in horror if her father was all right. The maid replied that thankfully there had been no casualties. Most had only minor burns. Elia didn't understand how someone could do such a horrible thing. Naturally, the emperor was also on the fast track. He reported that attacking a great noble family is treason, so it was imperative to catch the culprit. His Majesty's subordinates began to discuss. Judging from the scale of the fire and the mana traces, it was obvious that it was at least a 6th class Mah, or maybe a whole group of them attacked at once, but they were definitely not below the 5th class. As in the case of Princess Kanya, it could be the work of witch doctors. Suddenly, a servant arrived to tell me that there was urgent news. There seems to be an epidemic after the fire. All the members of the sigil have fallen ill. There is talk of their bodies simply being weakened by the attack. The worst thing for the Empress, naturally, was that all the family's wealth was gone. She stated about the maid to be sure to find out who attacked them. The interviewee noted that everyone is now looking for the perpetrator, and it is believed that the woman could be the next target. Even though it really poured off her, she understood. Reading the news, Asya reported that the Prats family's status has fallen drastically. Even their allies are not helping them in rebuilding the mansion. Kanya remarked, not only had the mansion burned down, but the treasures had been stolen. The interlocutor confirmed that, since they were great nobles, they did not lose heart. However, they should be careful too, and that was what she asked Prince Errol about. He only smiled, saying it was true. The attack is terrible in a world so troubled lately. He thinks it's worth going to the affected duchy and expressing condolences. A little time passed, and the lord and his men lined up outside the greenhouse. Arul said everyone did a great job, and they won't have to worry about food anymore. The man next to him tearfully reported that she didn't think they could get such a good crop in a place like this. The grains they harvested were twice as large as usual, and it was all thanks to Prince Arul. The boy pointed out that it wasn't really true, rather it was thanks to their magicians. They had worked overtime to achieve such a beautiful result. He soon realized that this result was excellent, and he was very happy with the work. And the Queen's family won't bother him anymore, because they don't care about him anymore. And his mini-empire is getting back on its feet. So let's hope it keeps going that way. 50 years ago, after the Great War, all 3 countries remained afloat. The so-called 3 great powers, the Empire of Ernesia, the Empire of Merman, and the Kingdom of Demaniel. Among them, only the kingdom. Demaniel had the least influence. This country held on more through sheer luck. An interesting event took place in the kingdom at the Chancellor's banquet. He was just about to invite everyone for a drink and hoped they would enjoy tonight. A man came up to them and noticed, although the gift was modest, they had managed to prepare it with great love for him. The old man asked what it was. The interlocutor asked the servant to bring the show sooner rather than later. In the box that was presented to him was a precious vial. The Chancellor knew that it was a precious elixir that was only sold in the Kingdom of Ernesia. If you apply it to your head, the hair will grow back, and it is a cure for baldness. The interlocutor went on to say that he hoped we would like it, so let him accept this gift from them. The old man stated that this gift must not be cheap, so he asked what the boy wanted as a return gift, and he remarked that he didn't even think he would give anything in return. But if anything, his son is being sent off to war next year, and he's a little worried. The Chancellor smiled and said he wasn't worried in this one, for he had memorized his words. As of late, goods imported from the Kingdom of Ernesia have become very popular in the Kingdom of Demaniel. Of course, we're talking about smuggling now. That same year, the conference hall of the kingdom shook. King Hezin Lucia Rutania was horrified, asking what you all mean. People continue to smuggle goods from Orencia. He had heard that the recent banquet served only exclusively imported goods. He did not understand what was in store for them next. The king's deputy, Duke Eljigan, asked His Majesty to calm down. But Heezen kept saying, "Don't they realize what will happen if things continue like this? If nothing is done, the foreign debt will double or even triple. The economic gap between the three countries is not that wide yet, but the scales are already tipping in a certain direction. And that's because someone keeps making new products." The Merman Empire was already protesting the importation of their paper because of the unusual production technology. The king did not understand how to bridge the gap in the economy. At that time, the deputy stated that they could not delay any longer, and they had to do something about it. His Highness said that their opponent is a powerful nation and not easily defeated. Elzigan said that it was not necessary to fight them alone. It's worth rallying with like-minded people during such difficult times, and also to create an alliance that would destroy the kingdom of Erenzia. Thus, the kingdom of Demaniel sent out alliance proposals to many, and soon there was to be a secret meeting in the dungeon of the kingdom's palace. Duke Eljigan welcomed everyone to share their views. Grand Duke Gong was the representative of the Merman Empire. He reported that it had been quite some time since their last meeting. Count Marin Binstard, the representative of the Principality of Sejpan, had also arrived. He hoped that all these were not just words. Eljigan knew very well that the Principality of Sejpan did not belong to the three great powers, but they had a pretty good army. Thus all the allies have already gathered. Gong noticed that Songguk didn't come. He pretends to be clean, but as soon as he senses profit, he comes running. Eljigan said that they were going to take the Ernesian Empire to pieces soon, so there's no point in hiding anything from each other. And further, he suggested that we start talks with like-minded people. As everyone is well aware, they need to stop the Ernesia Empire. You can't ignore their rapidly growing economy. Gong stated, "This is indeed a headache," and Marin wondered if there was any chance of beating them. If they fail, it will be a big problem. The interlocutor approached him sharply and said, "That's why they need to make an alliance. No matter how strong a country is, it will be difficult for it to resist an entire alliance at once. In addition, if they are forced to fight a war, they simply won't have the strength to produce. By the way, it is rumored that it is the youngest prince who contributes to the production of novelties. At the age of 8, he created something remarkable, and at 14, he revitalized a land in decline. Immediately he was told that some of the rumors might be exaggerated, but he shouted out that it wasn't true. If things were left like this, he would grow up and cause them even more trouble. And then the dominance of energy would never end. So they shouldn't hesitate. Either they'll delay and fear war, or they'll go and rip that bastard's head off." Such an attitude the allies naturally liked. Therefore, Gong reported that he agreed. In fact, their emperor had wanted to attack them for a long time. Marin also stated that they were eager to wrestle. Hearing this, Eljigan was glad that they had come to an agreement. Now they should elaborate on their plans. Meanwhile, the situation was reported to the Erenesian emperor. He, of course, guessed what was going on. But these three countries have indeed made a secret pact. And so it was perfectly clear that their intentions were impure. Thus, you need to prepare yourself. A storm is coming, compared to which the conflict of 30 years ago will seem like a child's quarrel. However, this year the taxes collected and the army are many times higher than last year. So, they would definitely not lose to them. Next, the emperor ordered his subordinates to send out official letters to all the vassals. When Errol got the news, he was a little surprised, wondering if he'd overdone it. He didn't, though. He did everything right. Dia noticed his uneasiness and asked what was wrong, if the walk was not to his liking. At this point, he was already 15 years old. The hero said that it seems to him that something bad is happening, and it is necessary to meet with his sister. It would be necessary to prepare properly. It turns out this neighboring kingdom is pissed off at Errol for mining too much. They even decided to ally despite their differences, which means we'll have to prepare for war. The main character could directly feel this evil energy in his direction. Kanya realized that these people had made a 3-state alliance. But that's strange. Wasn't the Merman Empire their alliance? The prince said it was true. It used to be. The girl noted, in that case, if they were being so suspicious, perhaps we should attack them first. Errol stated, that sounded good. But if they attack, they will cease to be the aggressors, for they have no proof of their intentions. They're not so stupid as to leave traces. Their kingdom is already lucky enough to have you see their secret. In principle, Arel had expected it himself, but he thought it would happen in about 5 years. It was funny that it had happened so quickly. Whatever the world in power is, it's always the same. People die and no one cares. That's why the military is still in demand. But is it really so hard not to fight? It annoys him a lot. Suddenly his sister asked if he was all right. He noted that everything was fine and just wondered. None of this was confirmed yet, and wondered what the sister would do. But she didn't understand why he was asking. Her brother said he thought she might want to go back to the palace. It turns out that her father is very worried about her, and even sent a letter. He's not too worried about his son, though. He doesn't want to send his sweet daughter to the battlefield. Aurel informed her that he wasn't telling her to flee, just that it would be better for her to stay in the palace until the threat was gone. In an emergency, her status as a princess takes precedence over her status as a knight. Naturally, the girl was indignant and said she was against it anyway. The hero didn't even expect her to refuse so quickly. At the same time, he informed that all this is not a joke. If the situation worsens, they will have to fight to the death. So the question arises whether she is sure of her choice. The sister only smiled, and then said, "It's okay. Isn't she sworn to protect him? She's not going to stand by and just because she's a princess. Even as a member of the royal family, why would she hide from danger?" Aurel's attitude surprised him, and he didn't understand when his sister became like this. He informed her that he couldn't believe their little princess had finally grown up. The girl didn't understand why she was getting all worked up about it, and the brother informed that he would tell his father that she was staying here. To him he wrote that he could not convince his sister of the wrongness of her choice, and he had done everything he could to do so. A short time later, Saina was enjoying a drink in the castle's parlor. She went on to say that war was a serious matter. Asha asked if she had any experience of real war. The interviewee reported that in the past, this had indeed been the case. She had been in the war twice, wandering along dangerous front lines, but those wars were just localized conflicts, unlike the upcoming one. Next, she asked Aja how long she had been in her homeland. Rumors had reached her that her younger brother had entered the academy this year. So reluctant, she would see him while she still could. The girl replied that she wasn't sure it was the right time for that. She was only sure that he would understand her. Her colleague wasn't going on vacation herself. Saina just smiled and said that she had nowhere to go. So suggests it's better to have a drink. Who knows? Maybe there won't be another chance like this. In the meantime, Aurel was in his office continuing to formulate a plan. He knew, though he told his sister, that nothing was certain yet, but he estimated that war would be declared on them within this year. In any case, he should get ready now, before he got a beating. These villains are amazing, and it's unclear what chance they have of winning. Probably somewhere around 30%. As a military pro in past lives, the guy guesses somewhere around 600 or 700,000 soldiers. Assuming they're on the defensive, they'll also have 600,000 warriors. It's hard to talk about a definite victory. Worst case scenario, you'll have to use dirty tricks. But even in the worst case scenario, he'll be fine as long as he can defend his fortress. Right now, his top priorities are to live life to his heart's content, which means a lord like him just has to come up with a plan to survive this war. In that case, you must start by reinforcing your troops. He'll make sure they don't even reach his lands. All you have to do is make sure that not a single rat slips past. So he arrived at Aiken's house and asked if he was very busy right now. In answer to his question, a hammer flew near his head. The boy realized that he was in a bad mood today. He welcomes him to Fahilia, albeit belatedly, and wonders if he's getting enough of everything. The old man said he was satisfied with the latest equipment and obscenely luxurious amenities here. The problem is the local blacksmiths and just plain garbage. The prince asked, but why? Are they not following orders? Then the dwarf shouted that he hadn't slept in about 2 days because of them. Errol said it was probably because ordinary people couldn't work so hard. One calmed down a bit and said that at least he had learned some good information about Bulat. He didn't realize his recipe was so simple. The Lord said that this was not particularly good news. The main thing was not to confuse the grams. Back to the point, he's here to place an order. He needs some weapons, so he asked if they could start producing it right away. With neighboring reported, if it is simple, there will be no problems. And how many pieces are needed is also interesting. The boy told him everything, whispering this information in his ear. The old man was simply flabbergasted by this. While he was angry and coming to his senses, the boy realized he had to get out. Following him flew on my hammer and words about him being a crazy kid. To make weapons and armor for 20,000 soldiers is simple terror. He probably didn't realize how long it would take. Ben was only trying to reassure him, but the master kept yelling that that guy wasn't even imagining it. Errol only realized that at this rate, he would break his neck one day, so he had to be careful, but still hoped that Aiken would get things done. So decided to move on to the next step. So he arrived to buy new slaves. He was greeted by the manager as a VIP customer. The prince reported that he himself did not expect to come here again. He noted that he was very surprised when he received a letter from him. I wonder how many slaves he needs this time. Arl stated this time the request will be the biggest one yet. The manager noted that he had nothing to worry about. He already knew who he was dealing with, but the hero managed to dumbfound him once again, talking about how he needed 50,000 people. That was 10 times more than the last time. I wonder if it's possible. Even though his interlocutors said he wouldn't be surprised, he couldn't find the words. And then he hesitated a little, talking about that figure. Arel noticed this and asked if they didn't have that much. The man said the case is that the number of requests for labor from the nobility has increased. They all hope to use the slaves as soldiers. About 2,000 to 3,000 have even been sold already. He apologized for the question, and asked if the prince was also going to use all 50,000 men as soldiers. The boy noted that we are not talking about all of them. He and his family are buying them out, just like last time. This is just an approximate number that he estimates. The manager thought about it for a while and said that it was true. He also said that he understood the gentleman. Errol thought that such a thing was all he cared about after all was money. As long as he has soldiers, protection is guaranteed. I'm sure this man is just looking for a way to run as much as possible. Therefore stated that the interlocutor knows. He does not like idle talk. Toth noted that this is true. This is the basis of serious business. So asked if he would send the slaves to his estate at once. The prince confirmed this, and asked how long it would take to gather the right number. The interlocutor stated that it takes about 5 days. The boy figured it out and said he would come in person to get them in 5 days. The manager pointed out that it would be quite a hassle, so he could bring them himself. But the prince again said that it was all right, and he would come himself. As he left the place, he was glad that he had a lot more work to do now. How complicated it is, and that means there are 5 days to get everything ready. Which means it's time to take matters into your own hands. Soon Errol informed his sister that he was going to walk for another 5 days. Concerned then, she asked if he would be all right. He thought about it. The main thing is to make sure she doesn't suspect anything. He wants to keep her busy with something to keep her busy. In the end, the girl agreed, but said that they would come back to this conversation. Then my brother asked, what about going for a walk around the capital? He was well aware that his sister was a princess, but because of the rumors of war, she was not going anywhere. And most of her life was spent in the palace. So she's very interested in the world around her. Surely she's left with a desire to see it. Kania asked what other excursion. The guy again suggested to walk a little bit there. She had nothing to do here anyway. She was sad to admit it, but he was right. As a result, the girl agreed just this once, and Errol had successfully persuaded Kanya. Soon she found herself in the busy city streets, talking about what he had imagined a little more. The boy pointed out that it was just the countryside and asked to hold on tight. Walking around, they even sampled the local strange cuisine. They also wandered to all the landmarks. At one such moment, the girl asked her brother to look. There were his creations for sale there, and she had seen them before. They were signed like the silver-haired sage. The hero, as usual, was horrified by this nickname. He was very embarrassed and confused as to who came up with it, what his creations were. So he turned his sister around and asked to see something else. What they discovered in the next stalls was that they sold swords there. The friendly merchant asked if they needed a sword. If so, then they had come to the right place. Here is the merchandise of the famous saint. All these swords are forged by them. Visitors need to know how talented the dwarves are. And there's a 10% discount today only. Looked at them, the prince informed them that none of this was true. Albeit at a discount to selling fake gnome goods was dangerous. The merchant was wary, asking what he was talking about, and a new kind of forging themselves. Then Errol asked his sister to pour mana into that sword but not, overdo it. The girl took him in her arms and did as he asked. And soon such a vaunted blade broke. The guy smiled and said that fake swords break if you use aura. Trying to get out of it, the salesman said that there's some mistake. And the prince said, since he was so insistent he could check them out for himself. The dwarves are in the neighborhood, and if he is wrong, it is ready to compensate for the damage. The interlocutor realized that he had attacked the wrong person, so he apologized and asked to end there. Then the boy asked for 1 dagger, and he would forget everything. The seller immediately started mumbling something. Then the hero asked if something was wrong and gave him an angry look. In response, he heard that there was no problem, and the interlocutor was grateful for his mercy. That's how Errol came to have this dagger in his possession. Kania asked if he really liked it that much. His brother pointed out that it was a real dagger. Though he was only holding it, it was original. Next, he held it out to his sister and asked her to take it. It would be his gift. The girl was surprised, but accepted it, and then thanked him. She said that Errol is the only one who cares so much about her. The boy realized, she is so happy, as if she got the gift of the most gorgeous dress in the world. Because of this, his sister is a unique person, and they really get along well with each other. And so it's been a few days since that moment. Kania was just asking if it was too much. Errol didn't understand what was wrong. Let her imagine that she is the commander of an army of 20,000 soldiers and leading them into battle. Thinking about it, my sister said it sounded great. Aja and the other girls were going to meet Prince Errol. It goes by that they haven't seen him for days, but the fact that he didn't see the entrance gate just stunned them. Mr. Link reported that he had returned, but what astonished the knights was that he brought with him 50,000 more subjects. Aja reported that everything had happened as she thought. He should not have been left alone. Sena, on the other hand, couldn't believe that there were so many of these people. Dia wondered how to feed them all. It was amazing that that was all she cared about. Asya said she understood they needed to prepare for war, but maybe they should have hired professional warriors. The Lord said that it is wrong. War is far and long. There will always be enemies who want to destroy Fahilia, so they just have to trust him. Has he ever been wrong? The interlocutor said that she understood everything and had no objections. And then the boy thanked her for her understanding. He also said that he would need their help in training these men. He is going to make them into excellent warriors. They will simply select the useful guys and then create a squad and train them. The prince will prepare a basic training manual, and the knights will lead them. So asked if the girls could handle it too, which I got an affirmative answer. Next thing he knew, he was thinking that everything was great. He would be very busy for a while. The leaders of the Tri-County Alliance have decided to play with him. If they come in here, they'll be in trouble. He'll personally put them in a smoking line in front of him. Soon Arl and Daya were walking somewhere together. And the boy complained about how hard it was to climb, why all the mages lived in the mountains. The girl noted, most of these can just very old-fashioned people. Young mages like her prefer to live in big cities. Then the boy declared that he understood everything. The enchantress added that she liked the mountains better, because in the cities it was boring and there was nothing to eat. The prince agreed, but didn't understand if that was the only reason. In the end, Errol got used to his magic mentor. The man reported that they hadn't seen each other in a while, and wondered what had brought him this time. The hero noted nothing special, just wants to buy something, but immediately can tell that this request is not easy. The interlocutor was interested in war, but what is it about? And heard a request for a special stone that can store mana. Pritz wants at least a Class A artifact. The wizard said that such stones were on the books of the magic tower. Then he didn't understand why he had chosen it. Aurel said he'd already figured it out. The magic tower wouldn't sell them to him. This, the interlocutor, understood and asked if he would use them for war. The boy understood that mages were no different from mere mortals when it came to war. But magical artifacts were a different matter. He asked to be understood correctly. He only wants to protect his territory. The wizard said he understood that, and yet he wondered why he was the one asking for such a favor. The principal breaks down, saying, doesn't he know? It's not like he's stupid enough not to realize. And as he also realizes, the boy is never parted from his debt. Errol knew the man was a snob, but inside he was still a cheapskate. At least he wasn't stupid and quick to draw the right conclusions. The wizard said he understood, but it would take some time. Returning home, the prince was glad that another problem had been solved. He felt that he had been working too hard lately and needed some rest. Suddenly I saw Dia fall to her knees, so I asked her in surprise what she was doing. And the girl asked with horror if it was not too much money. The prince understood why she was surprised and said that it was not a problem for him. He earns a lot. If she's so curious, he can tell her how much money he has in total. From the heard information, the interlocutor almost turned pale and fell into a stupor. The prince thought that he didn't even put the queen's stolen treasure there. In any case, there was nothing to worry about. So he tried to rouse the sorceress by saying that it was time to return to the castle. After a little while, he ordered the wizards to get to work. Now they have an important mission. They are interested, asked what the project is. The boy pointed out that it was necessary to prepare everything before the war started. It's also confidential information, so asked if they would keep it private, thinking it's about time they knew over time. Of course, they'll be paid accordingly. But don't be discouraged, it's all for their own sake. And already today the boy is going to walk around the capital. Asya arrived with him and asked him what brought him here. He didn't understand why she was asking. Couldn't he just go for a walk? Preparing for the war, he went to different deals now and then. So now he was dragging the girl along with him. She ended up being surprised when she saw where they had come. This place is an imperial academy. If the prince understands correctly, her younger brother is studying here. That means she must see him together at least once. Imperial Academy, accredited by the imperial family. An institution that educates the children of the nobility. Although high-ranking aristocrats still hire personal tutors, this was the place where most kids went to school anyway. Asha didn't understand why he brought her here. Aurel said when he gives her time off, she still says she has a lot of work to do. So does she really not want to see her brother at all? The girl said that he shouldn't have come here with her after all. Then he asked her not to be so stubborn. It's not like he's such an insensitive employer. And I've even prepared their passes, so go ahead. The hero knew that only children of noble descent studied here. To think that he still knew nothing about Aja's brother. That's why I asked if the girl knew where to find him, but she said she didn't know the exact location. Though if she sees him in a crowd, she'll say so right away. They say he looks a lot like her. The prince didn't realize if that was all she knew. Suddenly he saw a guy who looked like him, and asked what about him. Doesn't he look like her? Asha called his name Ayres, and it became clear to the hero what his name was. That said, it's unclear who the girls next to him are. One of them wondered if the boy had thought about her offer. Ares reported that he thought about it, but honestly, it's hard for him. The character realized that it's horrible. Even in places like this, there are bullies. So he asked the girl if he needed help. She offered to wait for a while, although those girls ended up enslaved, and the kid could exhale with relief. Then his sister came up to him and asked him what was going on. Ares was greatly surprised when he asked his sister how she had gotten here. She informed him that it wasn't about that right now, but wondered what those children wanted from him. He wrote in his letter that he was fine, but it was unclear what she had just seen. Her brother stated that she had it all wrong. Lady Corrette was not like that. Asha only asked me to answer honestly what they wanted. And then the boy shouted that he would not answer her. The sister couldn't understand why he was saying that. The hero reflected that he had not seen Asha so confused. So she asked her to wait, and he would talk to him himself. He greeted the kid, saying he was his sister's boss. Ares asked if he was the third prince. But the hero asked to drop the titles for now. He wondered what it was really about. If he was being bullied. He tells this girl who was picking on him. The interlocutor noted that it was not like that at all. And that conversation went smoothly. The prince said he would keep it a secret from the boy's sister. Only then did Ares begin to speak. He said that this girl's name was Heya Corrette. She was the youngest daughter of the Marquis of Corrette. The prince thought the name sounded familiar, and he wondered where he had heard it before. Suddenly remembering his birthday, he met this marquis. He didn't seem like a bad nobleman. So he asked if that girl was bullying her little brother and his bodyguard. The boy shouted again that it was not like that at all. After that, he hesitated, trying to say something, and I remembered the moment when it all happened. The girl pressed him against the wall, and he was then greatly surprised, after which she suggested that he go out with her. Ares reluctantly admitted that she wanted him to date her. This was something that Errol definitely couldn't expect, so he was simply amazed. The boy then just ran away and said he didn't want to, because they're only 11 years old. The hero has finally figured it out. The interviewee went on to say that he rejected her then, but she continued her advances, and the other ladies in the class treat him like a pet. It turns out they're not exactly bullying him, it just seems like they're overreaching. Prince was really amazed. This guy just doesn't realize how popular he is. Who would have thought that even a relationship between children could be so stressful? He even got tired of these thoughts. Ares went on to say that he just doesn't understand what to do with her. The hero wondered then why not ask her herself. The boy was horrified, asking Lady Corrette how long she had been standing there. The girl said she came back because she had something to tell him. But I wonder who all these people are. Arel said they're not some suspicious characters. Pointing at Asha, he said that in front of her was her future sister-in-law. The girl did not understand what the prince was saying and how to understand it. And while the prince was explaining, Haya said that she already knew everything. It was Air's older sister. She had already heard a lot about her. The girl immediately bowed valiantly and said it was a pleasure to meet her. She is Heya Corrette, the youngest daughter of the Corrette family. And she also wants to date her younger brother. While Asya was discouraged, she didn't realize what was going on. The prince only smiled and said that it was very cool and also quite brave. Knight asked what she should do in a situation like this. The guy replied, "There is only between them all unreflected. Then why don't you leave it up to those two?" Asha says that because Ares says she's forcing him. He never said he didn't like it though. It seems like he's just confused and doesn't know what to do. The hero informed if the girl wants to know, the Corrette family has an exceptional ability to make a profit through proper investments. If Ayers gets along with this girl, it will benefit their family. Asha reported that this reason is kind of weird. Arel stated understandably, it's secondary. But if they like each other, why doesn't she just leave it at that, and just watch things unfold? His companion understood that, but if she didn't disgust him, why did he refuse to date her? The prince noted that perhaps it was because of male pride. Or is there some other reason for this? At that moment, some guy arrived that asked Ayers if he was flirting with her again. Lucen didn't understand why someone like him was laughing power to Lady Corrette. Haya stood up for the boy, asked him why he was blaming Ayers. She's the one offering to date him. The interlocutor shouted that he is against it, and doesn't understand why she refuses to socialize with him. Besides, she chooses this scoundrel. It ends up being a love triangle within the walls of the academy. Errol wondered with horror what was going on here. Lucene further said that this boy's family is in decline. The eldest daughter even went to the village to work. And if she hangs around with such a thing, she will dishonor the Corrette family. Hearing these words, the prince said that this asshole is crossing the line. Suddenly Ayers yelled out, "Not sure what this is all about. Well, let him stop insulting his sister and Lady Corrette." The interlocutor was horrified by this, asking if he thought the man was joking. Realizing that the situation was critical, Arel tried to stop them, talking about changing the subject. If you always vote with your nose in the wrong place, sooner or later it will be torn off. The prince was not going to listen to this boy's ravings any further. Lucan asked why he was prying into outsiders' business at all, for he had not been asked. Arel said he at least had authorization to enter. So you have to have a positive attitude, a guest. At that moment, another man was brought to them. That he asked what the noise was about. The hero could not understand why there were so many people gathered here this time. Suddenly, a child called the arriving man a gate. Hai noticed that the wearer looked more like a teacher than a student. The unfamiliar man was just about to ask who he was. Errol noted that he had been waiting for that question, So introduced himself, saying that he was the third prince of the kingdom of Ernesia and the master of a village called Fahilia. The children were surprised when they found out who he was, and Lucian's brother understood. He asked if the prince wanted to move to another place to continue their conversation. Soon the protagonist as well as Asya followed along with him. Their new interlocutor's name is Cadell Lucin, the eldest son of the Lucin family, and part-time swordsmanship teacher at this academy. He asked to apologize for his younger brother's behavior. A little later, their family will formally apologize to him. The prince informed him to apologize properly to heirs, not to him. Cadell reported that he was not involved in this issue. Moreover, it was heirs himself who first started it. And since that's the case, shouldn't it be the Pernil family that should apologize? Asya asked what he was saying, for she was sure her enemy had done nothing wrong. Arel had wondered where this childish love triangle had come from. But now he seemed to know what the reason was. The Royal Academy, although an educational institution, it's basically a big place. And where young nobles build connections rather than just studying. It seems that this child was also just following his family's orders. At first, there was a possible other reason, but with time, even the right goal can become a bad one. Cadell went on to say the families of Karet and Lutzen have had a close relationship since a long time. Pernil should not prevent this from happening. The hero was shocked that the academy teacher was acting like this. It turns out they see Pernil's family as nothing more than obstacles in their way. Prince reported that the man was talking nonsense. It's unclear what a family name has to do with childhood relationships. Do teachers still teach discrimination in their time? Cadell noticed the difference in ranks cannot be ignored in any way, and making the appropriate connections was a nobleman's direct duty. Arel remarked, if this is true, does he know that Asya is his personal knight? So does he want to say that a knight of the royal family is beneath him in rank? Cadell stood up and indicated that he understood. He would warn his younger brother and hope that the Pernil family would henceforth refrain from actions that might cause misunderstandings. Arel remarked, still doing his own way as he realized, let him go back immediately. The situation is as follows. Hia is interested in heirs, and the brother of this man prevents it. Therefore, it is necessary to solve everything in the traditional way. The hero talks about the easiest way, which has been used by noblemen to solve such love problems since ancient times. Asya asked in surprise what he was talking about. Cadell was also surprised, and wondered if he wanted to have a duel between them. Arel said that Cadell was absolutely right. We should just have a duel and make a decision that way. The eldest daughter of the Pernil family versus the eldest son of the Lucine family. The younger ones, by the way, will also be involved. The interlocutor said it was just nonsense, but Prince added that he wasn't done yet. If he won, the ale would not only back off, but would actively help with the difficult situation of food shortages due to crop failures. This piqued Cadell's interest. Arel remarked that on the Pernil family's side, both Aja and Eras must also win. Only then would their victory be considered complete. Otherwise, if at least one representative of their side wins, it will already count as a win. Cadell thought about it. The proposal seemed spontaneous, but if they won, it would be doubly good for the family. And it was already clear who would win. Still, his younger brother is 2 years older than Ayres and has a stronger build. And since Cadell was previously an officer of the 13th Order, he would be able to easily defeat a mere escort knight. Therefore, after weighing everything, he more respectfully remarked that since His Highness was personally offering, he had no right to refuse. Smiling, Errol swore by the honor of the Ernesia clan that he would keep his word, and hoped his interlocutor would do the same. Asa, for her part, did not like this idea at all. She shouted to the prince that she usually forgave him for such antics. But this time it had gone too far. The hero didn't understand what she meant. Usually she just said the same thing and asked him not to do that. The girl stated that it was not about that. The prince explained that he knew he was going a little overboard. But was the girl really going to go against everything she herself said? This man made fun of their family in a rude way and disrespected heirs. Her brother is being treated with contempt. Is that normal? The girl noted that she was his bodyguard, after all. She could not be guided by her personal feelings now. The boy confirmed that she was his knight bodyguard. Ignoring his bodyguard is like ignoring him. He's not going to keep quiet when he or his men are insulted. So can consider this the beginning of the end for them. Let her admit that she wanted to beat the bastard up too. So offers to show her brother how much of a badass knight his sister is. Asha still didn't like the idea, but she reacted more calmly. And in the end, she even agreed. And her brother, when he found out everything they had talked about, was in tears saying that he couldn't do anything. It was incomprehensible how he could defeat Lucin. The prince asked, "What is there in general complicated in children's fights? Let him beat to the very first and we'll be all set." But the interlocutor continued to mumble. Then the hero, for his support, walked over and put his hand on his shoulder. And then asked me to answer one question, only honestly. The way he sees the situation, this Lucian Jr. is constantly bullying him. Then to be fair, doesn't that piss him off? The boy remarked that he can't say he's not pissed off at all because of that. He does get angry. But then, he remembers his sister, who works so hard for their family's reputation, and he simply couldn't afford to act in any sort of reckless manner. He couldn't think of anything better than holding back and building up his own strength. Hearing that, Errol said that's one option, but it is not clear when he will be able to change the situation. I don't think so. When I'm properly trained, I'll graduate. Or maybe Korda will join the order and become even stronger. Then it'll be too late in life to solve problems on the spot. If he keeps holding back and waiting for a good chance, he'll soon become moldy. Now his chance has come. He needs to show what will happen if you hurt their family. Of course, the heroes do not push his constant fighting, because it usually ends badly. But let him consider that he is now backed by the third prince himself. Ares was actually cheered up by this. The hero noticed this, and stated that he was about to tell the plan with which inaccurately defeated, so let him listen carefully. Dueling is cool only in words, but in reality, something more barbaric is still to be found. It is a natural manifestation of consensual violence. And of course, the whole event attracts a lot of gawkers and gossipers. Errol, in fact, took the most hot seat. He reported, even as the children fought to absorb, everyone right down to the old men pulled up. Heya asked him what was going on here and why no one asked her, but straight to the duel. The boy apologized that she hadn't been warned, they just really missed teaching that guy a lesson once. The girl reported that she would like that too. But it is a very bad way to do it. Ares says she is not good at fencing. The prince reported that she is a bit lacking in understanding. Whether she does or doesn't is not important right now. Corette stated that this is a duel, and ability is what matters. The prince said that was true. But cunning was what really mattered. The girl will figure it out on her own. It's only worth waiting a little longer. He wondered why she liked Ares so much. With a little thought on said he was very nice. When she clutches him, he makes a face like he's going to cry. I want to pinch him and watch the reaction. She literally ate it up in that moment. Next, she asked the hero if it wasn't the same for him. Arel wondered what she was saying. How did she eat it? I mean, it's dangerous. And they're the same species. Something reasons to cancel the duel are getting more and more. The judge soon announced, from this point on, with the third prince's permission, he was declaring the duel open. And as he launched a magical flash into the sky, the duel began. Lucen immediately rushed to the attack with a shout for his opponent to die. Corette was amazed that he still called himself a nobleman. He acts like some kind of wild boar. The hero took his turn communicating with Ares, talking about him taking a half-step back diagonally to the right. The boy did as the prince told him, and easily dodged the blow. Next, Errol said to go left, just let it deflect and back up. Now you need to take 2 steps to the right and then 3 diagonally, and the sword needs to be kept twisting hard and sharp. And at the end of it all, let him lunge. Ares followed every instruction the prince spoke, and even put his opponent down. The other kids watching the fight said it looked funny, but it was weird to be leaning away from all the attacks. Asha, who was also watching the fight, was very worried. Errol was actually instructing his fighter quietly in his ear. He created a small communication port exclusively for them. Children move only as they are taught. Their steps are as obvious as a textbook. Predicting what a toddler will do is a piece of cake. Next, the hero informed the boy that he was doing well. Let him keep moving as he prompted. At this time, Ares' opponent rose to his feet. Enraged, he tried to attack and said that some brat from a third-rate family wouldn't humiliate him. The prince immediately asked Ares to calm down, let him lean lower and attack sharply upwards. The boy even closed his eyes and did what the hero said. From such an outburst, even Hay was greatly surprised. Ares used this technique to hit the most dignified spot of the hollow. Naturally, Lucen could not withstand such a blow. The judge had no choice but to accept that Ares Pernal had won. While the boy marveled at his victory, the hero said it was a one-time thing. Then Cadell came up to him saying since he had lost, it couldn't be helped. But the prince's jokes were too cruel. The hero, pretending that nothing had happened, asked what he was talking about. The interlocutor remarked that on the whole he could have guessed that the fellow would stoop to subterfuge. But one way or another, next he's going to win and put an end to it all. Iris in turn rejoiced that he had done what they had planned. The hero praised him, saying that he had done well and it had worked out great. Heya also congratulated him, saying she believed he would win. Arel knew she was lying. The blushing girl in her would go far. Ares said, it's his sister's turn now, but he's worried if everything will be all right. He heard that Lord Cattle is the former head of the Order of 13 Knights. The prince noted that he had indeed heard such a thing, and he could see that he was confident in his abilities. Although it absolutely doesn't matter, Asha will still win this battle. He asked the boy to watch carefully. There was a reason his sister had become a knight. Cadell informed Ms. Pernal that he was not going to give in to her at all. So he threw himself into the attack and offered to fight to the best of his ability. He knew that he would never underestimate his opponent. Even if he lost, he would at least give his best. Suddenly, he lost concentration for a second, and didn't realize what was wrong with his eyes. And at that moment, He and his body were already flying as a flash to the side, after which he flew straight into the wall, which was far enough away. Naturally, this was done to him, Asya declaring that she too would not give in and thrash about at full strength. She would have liked to say it earlier, but it seemed unnecessary. He's somehow very weak at holding a punch for his own status. Some time had passed, and she now told the prince if he was up to anything else like this in the future, have him warn her in advance. Arel noted thanks to him his brother was now respected. Thanks to today's fight, he would definitely not be bullied again. He'll take care of the Lucines himself to keep them quiet, so she shouldn't worry. Before the war, she looked after her brother and solved problems. It wouldn't hurt her to relax a little. Asya was pleased with the way the young gentleman was not treated. So she said she had to thank him. When faced with something good, everyone tries to deny the situation in the first place. In other words, really or truly, it can't happen. And so, according to official information, the lords of Arnesia have begun recruiting and training soldiers to prepare for war. But their actions are too cautious to call them full-fledged preparations. What if we prepare for war, and there is no war? Then all the accumulated supplies and weapons would end up in a warehouse, and that would be a hassle. In short, it's all a really big headache. Perhaps that was why so many people had arisen, pointing their fingers at the Lord. The one who had decided to prepare in advance. It was Arel, and he offered to prepare as much as possible. He spoke confidently. But no one really knew whether there would be a war or not, so everyone went on with their lives as usual. And all this was going on until they heard the news, and it came from the capital of the Merman Empire. The Emperor has addressed the honored citizens of the Empire. Today he is going to make a statement to all the peoples of the continent. I wonder if they knew there was an enemy emerging that was undermining the finances of their nation. He not only makes undeserved profits by producing all sorts of fancy products, but he also sells the Empire's signature product paper at will, and that's certainly an indescribable chutzpah. The very villain he speaks of hails from the Empire of Arnesia, in the name of peace on their continent. Against this villain he is not about to bare his swords, and neither are all their allies, also victimized by this pest. After these words, the ruler of the Demanial Kingdom, as well as the Grand Duke of the Principality of Sejapan, approached him. Emperor Merman announced that their empire, along with allies the Kingdom of Demanial and the Principality of Sejapan, were going to judge the Empire of Arnesia together. It was at that point that his official offense was announced. Immediately, a message was sent to the great ruler of the Empire of Arenzia, saying that if he wanted to stop the shedding of innocent blood as soon as possible, he should do the following. First, he must stop making paper and shut down all production. Second, the secret recipes of their kingdom's unique products must be shared. Third, the profits made from the products should be shared among all the countries. And the last, Prince Arel was to be sent abroad to study, to bring out all his talents. Theorel did not like this, and realized that they were mocking their kingdom. If they want war, they'll have war. So he ordered the troops to gather now. This is the land their ancestors defended, and they will not give up an inch of it. After a little while, an event occurred on the border of the territory of the Kingdom of Arnesia near the Ape Fortress. From there, the flag wars of the three allied kingdoms emerged. Immediately it was clear that the alliance of the three kingdoms had finally arrived. Zale asked the knight what the scouts were reporting. He was told that there were about 70,000 warriors in the vanguard, though if you counted with those from the northeastern border, and they say that about 100,000 soldiers are attacking. The prince realized that 100,000 soldiers were not the end of the story. They must surely be followed by the main troops. As the heirs to the empire, he must stop them at all costs. So he told his people that if they united, they would have nothing to fear. We must make sure that not even an ant could get into the fortress. The real battle has begun with Arel's order to mobilize not yet given, but at this moment, when all the Fahilians have prepared, and are waiting for the enemy to finally appear. The prince is very busy and not be there for anything. He decided that now was a good time to unleash his talent at cooking. It was all Dia's job to test, and she's already prepared for it. The first thing the boy cooked was a stew of tender rabbit meat. The supplier is the village headman. The hero reported that it's so delicious, and once everyone finds out it's rabbit meat, they don't want to eat it. The enchantress noticed this is because they are glutted. Probably haven't tasted insects and poisonous fish since the hunger strike. It was time, and they finally had a good meal. Arel noted as he started cooking, perhaps something else needed to be done. The girl wondered what exactly he was going to do. You can tell by the ingredients that this wheat flour and dried fruit is probably something sweet. The gentleman only smiled and said it was a company secret. And the interlocutor said he was a great cook. Usually lords don't even show up in the kitchen. The boy indignantly stated that he had created recipes for all the products their company trades in. He didn't tell anyone about it, but he had a period where he thought if it didn't work out, he'd hide out properly and become a cook. After a while, the food he had set out was cooked. It was a deliciousness from Arel, a recipe he didn't say. After trying it, Dia realized that it was very tasty. But it seemed that if you ate a lot of it, you could gain weight very quickly. The hero noted that he came up with this when he was composing a soup ration for soldiers on the battlefield. Normal camp food is unpalatable. If something goes wrong, and he has to eat it, he needs a backup plan. The enchantress asked what about the mobilization order, since he hadn't given it yet. She was worried, but Errol merely informed her that he just wanted to finalize his preparations as much as possible. While there is time, it is imperative to get it all done. But on the front line, fierce fighting continued. The fortress that had first succumbed to the attack was beginning to storm. Zale reported that it was past time for them to launch a counterattack, but it was unclear where the reinforcements were. He was informed that it was on its way. The enemy kept climbing and climbing the wall. It's going to be hard to attack in this situation. What if there was an urgent intelligence message? Wary. The prince asked what had happened. The knight immediately dumbfounded him with the fact that the enemy army was approaching their 210,000. They did indeed rush away on horseback, and the stomping of hooves sounded more and more. Zale grimaced at this information and realized they were already here. Just then, an urgent meeting was taking place in the council chamber of the Ernizia Empire. It has been reported that the number of enemy troops continues to grow. It's only a matter of time before he doesn't smash them to smithereens. It cannot go on like this. It is better to retreat and reform the front line. One of his subordinates told His Majesty that his safety was paramount. But it was obvious that the Emperor was a bit confused. He further agreed that it was necessary to lead the front line. It was also necessary to try to convey to the people the gravity of the current situation. Everyone present realized that the situation was critical. Theorel informed let even feudal lords and aristocrats who are at least somewhat capable of fighting go into battle. He's ordering them to mobilize every force they have. Arel was surprised that his older brother still decided to take part in the war for the sake of achievements. Usually, representatives of the imperial family were not sent to the front. Even he got a subpoena. 3-on-1, it's hard to do that. But there's nothing worse than a numerical advantage. The Empire must prosper for him to continue to suffer from his bullshit, which means it's going to happen. He's going to be a private temporarily. Leaving the estate a few soldiers in charge, the hero began to prepare to enter the battlefield. He came to the edge and said it was about time he stepped up to the big time. Naturally, Kanya was beside him, and to her, he said she could stay in Fahilia. The girl's reaction was crystal clear, though. She said she didn't want to stay and would go too. The others can go, but she can't. The boy knew she was very stubborn. Of course, I could use her swordsmanship in the field, but who in their right mind would want to let their loved ones go to the front? If it's for the protection of the estate, perhaps her father can put pressure on her. Suddenly, the sister came closer and said that she was grateful that he was worried about her. But at the same time, she will not let him go to war alone. If the youngest goes, the older sister is also in. Errol realized there was no changing her mind. So he smiled and said that if she felt that way, he wouldn't hold her back any longer. He then informed her that it was time to hand her something. The girl was interested, and the hero bared his weapon. He reported that Mistress Fenelia had entrusted it to him. It is a sword passed down from generation to generation in the Kenzest family. It was named Keltia by the first head of the family. Even the dwarves recognized its quality, noting that it was extremely difficult to create such a treasure. Examining it, Kanya asked, "Oh, can the truth take?" "Brother," he said, "she is the third swordmaster in the kingdom. My sister rejoiced because of this, and was very grateful to her mom." Next, the hero thought he should not let her beware. It's moments like this that are important to make a gentlemanly exit. Now it's his job to minimize casualties as much as possible. For a valiant warrior, there is no better reward than saving lives and his men. Therefore, under no circumstances should one show any alarm. Lining up in front of the people, the boy announced, "Astana is moving to the front, by order of His Majesty." The enemy forces numbered 320,000 men. But Errol did not train them to fall in battle. He doesn't need the safety of building on their sacrifices. They have an obligation to ride out and defend their military honors. There are only 23 men in the army of their estate. So, let this number remain the same even after his war is over. A short time later, Errol and his men arrived at the front lines to the northeast at the fortress of Dercia. There, they saw much destruction, as well as wounded and gaunt soldiers. The battle was much harder than Errol had anticipated. Arriving at his commander's and part-time brother's house, the hero greeted the crown prince. Kanya greeted him as well. Zale was the first to apologize to them for having to involve them. If he'd been in charge, this wouldn't have happened. The hero was surprised because despite the number of the enemy to say such a thing compared to the Empress, the elder brother is clearly a good person. Therefore, he said that he had heard that the current situation left much to be desired. The interlocutor remarked that this truth their fortress was besieged by the enemy. All 320,000 men would soon be here. The enemy is quiet for a time to reform, but tomorrow the battle will continue. Errol realized the situation was worse than ever. If he had been a couple days late, this territory would have been overrun as well. Big Brother asked, "So Junior has 23,000 soldiers, and that's great. With them they could hold out until the rest of the feudal lords arrived." The hero thought, what kind of holdout is he going to use his men, in whom he invested a lot of energy and time as human shields? No, this option is definitely not suitable for them. That's why he told Zale there was no need to wait. Enough with the defensive. It's time to completely change the battle formation, because we can't stall any longer. The Crown Prince informed him that he understood his feeling, but in their position it could not be done. Then Errol said, in truth, he had prepared something for such an occasion. Let him see for himself. When word of the war reached him, he asked his blacksmiths to improve one thing. And so the older brother saw what the younger brother was talking about. There was no limit to the surprise, because it's a traveling belvedere. It will accommodate shooters as well as wizards. This is a prefabricated tower, so it is extremely easy to move. Zale cheerfully reported that she would indeed be able to help them. But the hero pointed out that there was more to it than that. Seeing the next creation, the interlocutor was surprised, and wondered what it was called. Arel remarked, if a name was needed, he suggested calling it Blade Knife on Wheels. He knew that such weapons were often used in ancient times for sieges. It could help in defense and put psychological pressure on the enemy. He improved this hero model with the help of magicians and dwarves. He noticed that they had enough blades. It was only necessary to assemble the base, and the weapon would be sufficient to use. He's going to take over the defense and let his brother focus on the counterattack. Zale liked that prospect, and he was already feeling at least a chance. Arel thought those three scoundrels had crossed the road. Now would be a good time to counterattack. The enemy soon received word that Ernesia had reinforcements. The three commanders were chatting about the backlash being serious, judging by how smoothly they held off the onslaught of the first wave. Apparently the crown princes are as stupid as they assumed, and that's bad. Suddenly the man asked why one of them was smiling. The one reported that he was just interested in the one milkman that brought reinforcements. He talks about the third prince of Errol, Ernesia. It turns out that he is the reason for the sudden enrichment of the empire and the beginning of the war. The others were surprised that this boy was actually here. The man said at first the rumors that those impressive goods created by some small puppy seemed unfulfilled nonsense. And then suddenly there was a chance to check their authenticity. In that case, I wonder what they'll say, because they're probably curious about everything too. The interlocutor stated that this is true, but his status is a little embarrassing. The commander said he knows that very well, but he should not worry. He will not ruin their agreement. The rest of us just need to be at all guns and thieves to destroy the enemy already. Arl's army of approximately 23,000 men lined up. Watching them, the hero was proud and couldn't believe they were his men. And the troops that attacked them, the army of the Union of the 3 states, had about 50,000. When they rushed to the attack, and the hero ordered that his subordinates act according to the plan as agreed. The enemy commanders said that the defending cowards are covered by shields, so we need to crush them as hard as we can. There's almost half as many of them, and even the best strategy can't win a battle like this. As soon as he claimed it, he saw something strange in the sky that was approaching them. It turned out to be a huge wave of arrows that began to express the enemies. Those who had any defensive weapons and successfully survived, but the rest were already dead. An order passed among the knights to raise their shields, need to leave fear behind and continue the attack. Errol realized that the attackers weren't going to stop, and it wasn't enough to run them over. The onslaught on the defenders continued to get stronger and stronger, but it was impossible to break through their defense. One of the enemy knights realized he couldn't advance. The shields of those they are attacking are clearly different from normal. Strange what they are made of. Suddenly, Arl's charges used a bladed weapon to clear the way and surprise the attackers. The enemies were so wary that they made the decision to retreat quickly, but for most of them, it was already very late to do so. Though the prince didn't welcome bloodshed in the wolf, he thought it was necessary to blame it all on their brainless commander. The enemy commander just reported that the infantry was failing, so he asked for magical support to head into battle, who at that moment was really a little offended to have to resort to the help of mages so soon. But there were no other options now. Wizards and far more frightening than ordinary soldiers, and where to fall even knights with aura. Their top-level spells are real weapons of mass destruction. Knowing the value of magic and the mana limit, the commander wanted to hold them back. But now he sent them into battle and ordered them to hit at full strength, to show that their cheap tricks wouldn't work in the face of true power. The wizards tried to use their powers, but suddenly something strange happened. Angry, the commander asked why they were standing around. Let them attack alive. Are they going to betray them? Suddenly he was informed that it wasn't that easy. The magic wasn't working and something was blocking them. The commander, he realized, was horrified. And that can only mean one thing, that the enemy has wizards too. Dia was in charge of the overwhelming force. She reported that it wasn't that hard. She even said it was so easy that she wondered if the mages were really there. She's only a 6th grade wizard. With the skills of these people who only have 4th grade with her and me to contend with. The enemy commander shouted to the mages to do something incomprehensible for how long they could stand. But they said they couldn't, but the enemy couldn't use battle magic either, since block magic requires extremely large amounts of mana. Dia didn't think so, and was about to move on to the next stage. The enemy warriors afterward were struck by the same battle magic. Then the battle commander started scolding his subordinate, saying that it wasn't like they couldn't use magic. The wizard said confusedly that it couldn't be. No matter how much mana a person had, it was impossible to use such a spell immediately after a block. It's unbelievable that their enemies could do something like that. Suddenly, they saw the magic stone of the strongest among all. It became incomprehensible to the enemy commander, where a mere feudal lord got such a treasure. One wonders what kind of monster is their leader. The magic spells of the defenders of Reincarnated continued to attack. This time ice magic was used, turning the knights into ice. Also, where was it without fire and other deadly spells? It was that very day that the enemy army lost 30,000 soldiers. Errol, once again, is convinced that winning a war brings no joy. He can't understand why all this senseless killing. He should be resting, not doing all this. Soon, Sena inquired as to what they would do with the retreating enemy. The hero noted that the pursuer would not be them. Also could use a breather. Also, the abandoned soldiers let them be taken prisoner. Zale rejoiced at his brother's victory. It is said that the repulse gave a great one. I'm sure even the enemy didn't expect such a defeat, and well done, brother. Errol said he was just lucky. The exceptionally strong enemies were handled by the elder brother. The hero thought his interlocutor seemed to misunderstand something. He only wants to rest, not become a frontline hero. So all honor and glory will be reserved for Zale. He said that their counterattack must have dampened the enemy's fervor. And now might be a good time to retaliate. The knights supported him, and also Arel said let him do as he sees fit. The crown prince stated, in that case, it was now Ernesia's turn to attack. Arel thought things were shaping up nicely. As long as he was back making noise in the enemy camp, he could rest for a while. Rest in war essentially exists too, you just have to be somewhere in the back. The Imperial army led by Zale immediately launched a counterattack. The activity of the Fahilian soldiers allowed the defense forces to be divided into 3 parts. And to counter the numerical superiority, a battle of attrition was chosen over all-out warfare, minimal defense and maximum tactical offensive moves. In the meantime, everything is quiet in the rear while the fierce battles continue. Errol continues to enjoy his vacation and eats a full meal. Of course, so did the rest of his subordinate knights. While everyone else was enjoying themselves, Aja was worried for some reason. She soon reported that she was somehow uncomfortable with the fact that there was blood being spilled, and they were sitting there relaxing. Sena asked, "What's the big deal?" In war, as they say, it's survival of the fittest. The character noted that it was said perfectly. It turned out that thanks to the strategic advantage of Fahilia's troops, were left with the excuse that they were slow, and if they were touched, it was a lost cause. Yesterday's counterattack had seriously stressed them out, so they wouldn't get into this hive a second time. In other words, we can idle today with a clear conscience. Thinking about it, the hero noticed that there was something else. I wonder if it's normal to rest Dia like this. Maybe we should move her to a softer place. She survived half of the block yesterday on her own, and can be considered to have expended the most energy. Absorbing and circulating the magic stone's mana takes an extremely large amount of energy. That's exactly why he told her to let you rest. But she said she needed to eat first, and sleep would have to wait. And so it quickly began to grab the meat I'm eating to the brim. After which she simply fell asleep sitting at the same table. RL then informed them that it didn't matter. They would finish eating and they could go to bed. After all, great things are already in store for them tomorrow. The enemy commander got the report and realized things were bad. The crown prince, who leads the army of course, is also an eyesore. But he still has milk on his lips. The real problem is definitely not him. The recent counterattack was too sudden. But wasn't that sucker just a merchant of some sort? The man can't believe that his army of 23,000 men wiped out 30,000 of their warriors out of 50. Combat is all about experience. To understand its essence, it is much more important to experience combat on your own skin than to make plans in your head. It's unclear how a 16-year-old boy can do such a thing. However, the most unclear is why his husband is sitting in the rear. With his abilities, he could change the course of the entire battle in no time. It's unclear what he's up to, or who this Arel Ernisia even is. The next day, Arel's army joined Brother Zale's troop, and they all set out together to reclaim the fortress. The hero was just inside the carriage mulling over a plan. He asked me to turn the speed down to half speed. We need to go a little slower. Kanya, sitting next to her, was surprised and asked what was wrong. The hero reported that he thought they were already being waited on. Last time, the Alliance suffered a lot of damage by attacking them head-on. The sister said it was true. The boy went on to say, they're not stupid either, so they won't step on the same rake a second time. Moreover, they'll be passing through this place soon, and it's perfect for an ambush. So the boy is sure that the Alliance will not miss such a chance. And if the enemy is preparing to attack, let him prepare for the consequences. Arel and his soldiers have arrived at that dangerous area. There was indeed an ambush on them. And those who were sitting in it realized that the enemy was coming. So everyone needed to get ready. They were definitely going to win this time. A little time passed, and the man realized that they were delayed. He had been told, of course, that they were moving rather slowly because they were carrying a watchtower, but not that slow. Suddenly, he had a thought on the matter. And at that moment, I heard the stomping of horses' hooves, so I knew they were here. Thus ordered his subordinates to activate the attack. Arrows from different directions flew straight at the caravan. But as a result, they were blocked by magic and did not accomplish what they intended. It turned out to be shield magic. Enemy wizards reported that the spell didn't work, and similar block there. The commander wondered if that was impossible. It was incomprehensible how to pass in them could use magic so quickly. Did he really prepare himself in advance? Weighing everything, he reported that there was no point in lacing further and it was necessary to retreat. The wards heard their commander and began their retreat. But when they did, they started falling into traps. It was a multitude of traps that were scattered over a large area, and Sena was already beside them. The girl said that a skillful hunter knows how to set traps, and traps are known to catch not only animals, but also people. Said kind of pathetic words, she immediately went on the attack. The enemies didn't expect an ambush on their own, so they couldn't fight back. The girl said, if one prepares for an attack, one must also be prepared for the consequences. She is simply relaying the words of her leader. The enemy commander grabbed his weapon and said she dared not stand in their way. He, for his part, is certainly not going to lose, certainly not to some wench. So he rushed into the attack, relying on his own strength. Sena didn't say anything to him and only channeled her aura into one of his limbs. After that, the battle only got tougher. Aja was also around. She said so much chit-chat, but in reality it was nothing much. Earlier, RL said that one should show themselves to be the worst kind of shit. Then the enemy will just start avoiding them not out of fear, but out of disgust. Instead of fighting a fierce battle, they would become enemies to be touched. That was his whole plan. Arel's army successfully destroyed the suddenly filled-in soldiers from the Tri-State Alliance, and also recaptured the border fortress back. The enemy tried attacking a few more times, but they were no longer able to break Ernija's fighting spirit so easily. Moreover, the thing that gave the strongest rebuff to the enemy was Kanya. She fought her enemies fiercely, not giving them a chance to win. Enemies didn't believe that this terrifyingly strong girl was actually a princess, and the rumors weren't lying. There are no sword masters among them. It's just that the masters are concentrated in the south, and on the front lines, there was no one comparable in strength to her. It had been months since the war began. The armies of the Tri-State Alliance were losing steam and soldiers by the day.